And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Kramer, joined by my co-host, the great Daniel Bobo Curlin. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. Just gotta say, in New York State, DMV is a joke. Real ID? What's the deal with real ID? Ain't an ID real enough? It's real. I got it from the DMV. I got it from the state of New York. It's a real ID.
I like it. A little Bobo Seinfeld to kick things off right here.
I know. That's what it sounded like when I complained about the whole having to get a real ID from the DMV.
And how was your trip to the DMV? It was a nightmare, I'm sure, right?
Long line. All I could say, in the words of Skips, I've seen this before.
And yeah.
Plus that the Uber because the DMV is in the most out of the way place is in a location in Queens that's a public transit nightmare. The Uber got caught in probably a mix of rush hour and Mets game traffic.
Yeah, that's definitely got nightmare written all over it. Well,
it's only going to get worse in a couple of weeks. For those of you in New York, it's only going to get worse in a couple of weeks when the U.S. Open's in town.
That is true. September is right around the corner. Can't believe it, by the way, too. The summer has basically passed us by.
Yup, as Howie Rose said, because he has to deal with the traffic driving in and out. The U.S. Open, they should move that to Jersey.
Well said. And Dan, let's kick things off here now. We got a lot to get into today as we've had, an interesting week for us Met fans. Let's start off with the good. As Dan, you were at a historic event the other night as Pete Alonso passed Darryl Strawberry for the most home runs all time in Met history. 253. He would actually go on to hit number 254 that night as well in a rare Met blowout win these days.
Oh, yeah, I was happy with that. And also, I noticed something. When I came home, I recorded the game on my DVR. It turned out, I don't know, one of my relatives says, Daniel, you have a knock for being there when Gary Cohen, on moments Gary Cohen's done a double, it's out of here. And guess what? When I watched the game on my DVR, I had to see that moment, the DVR, how it looked, the broadcast, how it looked and everything, and the Gary Cohen call. He did you guessed it, double, it's out of here. And the moment's extra big when Gary Cohen does a double, it's out of here.
That's true. And as a matter of fact, Dan, let's take a look back at that call as Gary Cohen, in my opinion, and apparently in your opinion too, has a great home run call for number 253 here. Let's check it out.
And Pete drives one to deep right center field, headed back toward the wall. It's out of here! Out of here! Pete Alonso stands alone! The polar bear on his own private iceberg. Pete Alonso, the most prolific home run hitter in New York Mets history.
That was a great job there by Gary Cohen. And, I don't think he went too over the top or anything because, he could have acted like it was the biggest moment of all time. I'm sure he could have if he wanted to, but he didn't. I thought he was pretty, restrained but jubilant about it, which was good to see. Though, Dan, there is a person that disagrees with our opinion of that, and his name is Chris Mad Dog Russo.
Oh my God, Mad Dog!
He mocked Gary Cohen's home run call, saying that it was way over the top, and said that he knows Met fans, and Met fans don't care about the home run record, and that we didn't even know that Darryl Strawberry had 252 before this. What a joke that guy is. Before I even say anything, Dan, what do you think?
I get as much. I'm shocked he said this. I have respect for Mad Dog, for him and Mike how they were part of what made an entire radio format, the format we're doing today, successful. The reason we're doing this today is because of those two good people. They helped. They had a hand in an entire station, an entire format of radio station successful. And I'm shocked he would do this, not understand that Met fans are very knowledgeable about things and about our history. And he's got to understand, Mets, I guess you could say, sort of don't have a big history. They don't have a history of position players being Mets their entire career long enough to break records like that. Hasn't been a Met that's been around really long enough to have a bulk of their Hall of Fame career as a position player as a Met, and long enough to really set the standard for the Mets all-time home run record. It hasn't been quite a thing that's really historically happened with the Mets, and Pete Alonso is accomplishing a lot. I mean, at least stats wise, some things we probably have never seen with the Mets. I mean, we've never seen a Met really like reach like a 53 home run season. You never saw a Met.
Exactly. You're 100% right about that. I never thought, and I always said that we'd never see a Met hit 50 home runs. I never thought I'd see it. And when Alonso did it, it blew my freaking mind.
Yeah, and you've never seen a Met have a record, a positive stat like record in MLB history as Pete Alonso broke the all-time home run record by a rookie. We've never seen a Met have hold a record like that in our history, and it's only the second time that a Met led the league in home runs. And you rarely see a Met like that get MVP votes like that in 2009 and 2019. I mean, so it's like you're seeing Pete do stuff that the Mets have not quite been known to do in their history, and probably is going to have a lot. There's probably going to be a lot more numbers that Pete Alonso will put up, depending how long he's a Met. So they gotta understand that. The other thing, diehard Met fans like us are aware of our team's history. They got to understand that. And Gary Cohen is trying to call the game in respect to that this is part of their history, and understands what the magnitude of that moment in Mets history. And also the fact that Pete Alonso is putting up those numbers at a pace that you don't quite see that often with position players.
Especially not in a Met uniform. I mean, just to echo what you just said, Dan, you're 100% right, because Pete is, like, I believe, 7th all-time in hitting 250-plus home runs in such a short amount of time. He's up there with names like Ryan Howard and Harmon Killebrew and Alex Rodriguez and gigantic names like that. So you're 100% right about that.
Yeah, and it's probably going to be only the third Mets position player to have his number retired as a Met.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And Dan, I couldn't agree with you more. I think people underestimate how knowledgeable, I guess for a lack of a better term, Met fans are when it comes to their team. Gary Cohen didn't call that moment for a San Francisco Giants fan like Chris Mad Dog Russo. He didn't call that moment for a Yankees fan like Mike Francesa or anybody else like that. He called that moment for Met fans like me and Dan, who that moment really meant a lot to. And you could say what you want. People might not have known 252. Obviously me and Dan did. We're that type of Met fans. And people might not have known 252 as of a couple of years ago. But David Wright got within 10 home runs of 252. There were a majority of Met fans who were aware of 252 simply because of how close David Wright came to that number. So people were aware of it. To sit here and suggest otherwise is ridiculous.
Oh, wait a minute! I gotta correct myself mentioning David Wright. I keep forgetting that's gonna be technically four. That's gonna technically be 4 position players. Actually, correction, 5 position player. Once Pete Alonso has his number retired, hopefully years from now, that'll be 5 position players. Because I forgot about David Wright and Willie Mays, who were also position players who've had their number retired by the Mets. He'll be the 5th position player to have his number retired by the Mets when that's all said and done.
So, of course, yeah, and so just to close up here on...
Yeah, and just to correct my mistake in that stat.
Exactly. And as for Mad Dog Russo, like Dan said, I have respect for what you've done in the business, but that was just an incredibly stupid remark by you.
Yep, and exactly. And I do got to say also, Mad Dog was super nice every time I've run into him. But I ran into him a couple of times when I visited O&A back in the day when they were at Sirius XM. He couldn't be... It couldn't be any nicer. When I approached him, I said, "Oh, Mad Dog, nice to meet you. It's nice to meet you. I'm a lifelong New Yorker. It's an honor to meet such a New York a living New York landmark."
Yeah, and if only he didn't hate the teams from New York that much. This freaking guy. He never had any time for the Mets, and he never had any time for the Yankees either. So, stay off the New York airways. We don't need you, Mad Dog. As nice of a guy as you might be. And Dan, let's get back on track now here. Let's talk about some of the nonsense that we've seen from our New York Metropolitans over the last couple of days. And yesterday, the thing is, Dan, too, me and you have done a really good job, I felt like, over the last few weeks, shining a light on how bad the Mets offense has been. But I want to not make this about the offense right now, because as bad of a run as we've seen the Mets offense has been on. Yesterday they went out and 2 days ago they went out and put up 13 runs in the first game of this homestand to win that game 13-5. On Sunday they were up 5-0 against Milwaukee and blew that game. And then last night they were up 6-0 on the Atlanta Braves, who stink, and blew that one. And ended up losing that one 11-6. Just you can't, in the span of 4 days and 3 games, blow 2, especially with as bad as the Mets have been, blow 2 games where you led 5-0 and 6-0. It's unacceptable. This team has been horseshit for far too long.
Yeah, I'm starting to question David Stearns and the way he's bringing in these pitching. I really feel like David Stearns doesn't really completely have a knack for bringing in pitching, at least so far.
But the thing is, last night you can't blame it on anybody that David Stearns brought in. It was David Peterson. David Peterson, who's supposed to be one of our rocks. That's the problem. When guys that you're supposed to be depending on start letting you down, like when Edwin Diaz allowed the walk-off home run the other night, when David Peterson comes out and shits the bed out of nowhere, this is when you really have to start worrying about the mindset of a ball club. Because while you're right, me and you could sit here and bitch about the rest of the rotation. David Peterson is supposed to be a guy that we can rely on. For him to come out and orchestrate blowing a 6-0 lead is unacceptable.
Yeah, this just shocked me that how this pitcher couldn't get out of the 4th inning. This game felt very winnable if there could have been better pitching.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You knew, and I knew as soon as they saw really 6-4, I knew it was over. But when it was 6-5, and Michael Harris was up against Reed Garrett, I just had the worst sinking feeling in the world. And I didn't necessarily think it was going to be a grand slam, but you knew when that ball came off the bat that it was going to be trouble. And Reed Garrett allowed that grand slam, and then that was it. That's one other thing you can criticize the Mets offenses about, is that in the game on Tuesday, they also blew the lead. They blew a 5-1 lead in that game, and the offense woke up and ended up scoring 13 runs, which is scary enough. When you think about that, Dan, too, in the last 3 games, the Mets pitching staff has blown a 5-0 lead, a 5-1 lead, and a 6-0 lead. Now, thank God in the middle of that, the Mets scored 13 runs and won that middle game, but they lost the other two. And the offense went to sleep after taking a 5-0 lead and a 6-0 lead in those other games too. So, we need the offense to be more responsive. But, Dan, as bad as this offense has struggled for most of this season, when they put up 5 or 6 runs in a game, the pitching staff has to hold them.
Yeah, exactly. They need to freaking do a better job. I feel like the key to winning games, to winning championships, is the amount of scoreless innings you could put up. And if you're not putting up enough scoreless innings, you're taking the team out of the game.
Yeah, and not necessarily scoreless, but I do 100% agree with what you're saying, Dan. This number comes and smacks you right in the face. When you look at this really blew my mind. The Mets this season ranked 27th in innings pitched in Major League Baseball by their starting pitchers. 30th, they are dead last in the major leagues for the last 2 full months since June 13th. And last year, when you look at that rotation that was headed by guys like Jose Quintana and Luis Severino and the other guys in that rotation, they were 6th in innings pitched all year. The Mets the Mets were 6th from the top at this point last year. They are 3rd from the bottom this year. It is a complete 180 turnaround for what the Mets have done from a starting pitching standpoint this year. And obviously we can sit here and bitch about David Stearns as much as we want, and a lot of it's warranted with some of the guys he brought in. But, I mean, nobody could have expected it to be this bad for this long.
Yeah, exactly. It was so bad. I was upset. The only thing that kept me really being upset about having to wait a long time for the bus from the train station, because for all you know, in case you don't know, I take a bus and a train to get to Citi Field. So the thing that kept me was getting an Uber home from the train station. The rest of the way, I had some Uber credit from sometimes the Uber accidentally charged me twice. So I made use of that Uber credit because I wasn't gonna wait long for that. Wasn't gonna wait that amount of time for what I would have had to wait to if I would have had to wait for the bus after the game, with the time the game got delayed yesterday.
Yeah. Well, so there is a silver lining aside from that, though, Dan, and that is that we did see some good stuff out of Paul Blackburn yesterday. He gave up a 2-run shot to Marcell Ozuna at one point. When it was 9-6, he made it 11-6, but he really saved the bullpen yesterday. Again, they had Justin Hageman do the same thing the day before that, and Blackburn 5 innings out of the bullpen, 1 hit, 2 earned runs, a walk, 3 Ks. That's exactly what they need, and maybe this is the first step towards getting Blackburn back in the rotation.
Yeah, exactly. And I gotta say, I'm raising the gauntlet of what I'll do if the Mets make the playoffs, and what we'll do if the Mets win the World Series. I'm just saying this right now. If the Mets win the World Series, both Cramer and I will film the both of us watching Wicked Part 1, Mystery Science Theater 3000 style, because that's the only real way to watch that movie. And we will torture ourselves by going to see the movie together in a movie theater, Part 2 in a movie theater together. And we will, if the Mets win the World Series, remember how I said I would try to get as many Met fans to go to Disney World as possible to join in victory trip? Me and Kramer will film a video in Disney World thanking David Stearns if the Mets win the World Series.
All right. Well, I don't know how much of that we're going to be able to work out, but absolutely, on paper, I like it, Dan. Unfortunately, right now, I don't know how the hell we're thinking about anything close to the World Series, with as horrible as the Mets have played for 2 full months at this point. The only thing that did help us, although it also kind of hurt the Mets right now, is that yesterday the Phillies ended up losing 8-0 to the Reds. So that's the other thing that really pissed me off with the Mad Dog, where he was saying that, the Mets are buried in the NL East. They're only 5 back right now, and if the Mets had been a major league team and not blown a 5-0, or I'm sorry, a 6-0 lead yesterday, then they would have been only 4 games back of the Phillies today. And even with that, they're still only 5. So they're not buried. But the thing that really does hurt is that they're only 1 game up on the Reds right now, and the Reds are right behind us.
Yep, exactly. And also that thing that I planned, that I said if the Mets win the World Series, that applies to if we win a World Series while David Stern's the GM. By the way, that's
I don't know about that.
But that's just not this year. That's if David Stearns is still the GM when it happens.
All right. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Let's make the playoffs first. And one step to making the playoffs, though, Dan, and I think me and you both agree with it, is that the Mets send Frankie Montas to the bullpen. I wish that bullpen was on the moon and they would just eject him off this team. But I guess at least for the foreseeable future, he's going to be in the bullpen.
Finally, we called up a prospect.
Top pitching prospect, Nolan McLean. It's not Brandon Sprout, who I kind of thought they were going to give the nod to. Sprout has 22 starts in AAA this year, and I thought they were going to give him a shot up here. But they went with Nolan McLean, who only has 15 starts at AAA this year. He did actually begin the year in AA. He's had a phenomenal year, so it doesn't surprise me. He's the Mets' top pitching prospect, number 3 overall in their system. And in the top 100 prospects in the minor leagues right now, Nolan McLean is number 37. So he is a tippy-top pitching prospect right now. And we're going to be there live to see him make his major league debut on Saturday.
Yeah, how crazy is that we're gonna get to see this in person? This is the first time I've seen a Mets starting pitcher make his major league debut since 2015. 2014. Since 2014, when I was present for Jacob deGrom's debut. That's how long it's been since I've seen a Mets starting pitcher make his MLB debut in person.
Wow, very interesting. The last time for me was probably Steven Matz in 2015 against the Reds.
Yep, that's a pretty. I say that's a pretty notable pitching debut because I feel like that was a pivotal moment in the 2015 season.
It was that doubleheader too. Steven Matz came up and pitched the second game of the doubleheader, and that was definitely a pivotal moment.
Yeah, and a crazy thing, a stat about that doubleheader. The night before, REO Speedwagon was supposed to perform the day before, right? But that game got rained out. They were actually nice enough to stick around the next day and actually wait to perform after that doubleheader.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. No, you gotta tip your hats to them for doing that, being willing to wait that long to perform after, not just after a game, after it was rained out the day before, but to wait after a doubleheader to perform. You gotta tip your hats for them for doing that.
Tip of the cap to REO Speedwagon there. So Nolan McLean be making his first start on Saturday. But before we get there, Mets got to play the finale tonight against the Braves. Bryce Elder going for Atlanta. He's had a bad year for them, 4-9, 6.12 ERA. Going against Kodai Senga, who, it's crazy to think, Dan, you see those numbers, 7-4, 2.30 ERA. It's crazy to think how bad he's been over the last month. And his numbers still look really good. It just goes to show how good Kodai was at the beginning of the season. And you just got to hope that if he can regain that form down the stretch here, that's going to be a big shot in the arm for the Mets.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping he gains that form. I'm hoping it's just maybe a little bit of coming back from an injury, because I feel like more with pitchers and position players, when you have an injury like that, I feel like it takes a little bit to gain that form, to gain that midseason form that he he was already at when he started the season. I feel like it's like a step back when you get that injury that you kind of have to get. I feel like you have to get through another stage in coming back from an injury in a way, because it's like, because I just feel like it's a different animal pitching in the major leagues than it is the minors, that you kind of have to get in the zone from that in that when you, because it's a whole different animal. There's, especially in the Mets uniform, the pressure is extra in that uniform.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. But the other thing too that I have to agree with you on is that, you know, it kind of throws a pitcher out of whack a little bit when you have a midseason injury like that. But the other thing is that Kodai Senga is even more susceptible to that. We've seen Senga, when he gets out of whack with his delivery or when he gets out of rhythm, that's the type of thing that really screws Kodai up. And, you know, that he wants to put himself back in a position where he can repeat the same delivery and get in that same groove over and over and over again. And it kind of looks like over the last couple of starts, he's been searching for it and just really hasn't found it yet. Or he finds it for a couple of innings and then loses it.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like another thing that really maybe needs to be done specifically when it comes to pitchers in the professional baseball in Japan, I feel like if they expect pitchers that, you know, to get in the major leagues, maybe they need to adjust the way they, you know, the amount of times they pitch based on readying themselves to pitch in the MLB. Maybe when they're like throwing bullpen sessions, maybe instead of using the ball that they use in a Japanese league, maybe use an MLB regulation ball to try to ready themselves. You know, try to get themselves better prepared for pitching in MLB. I feel like it's a key thing when they get into the major leagues. I just feel like that's something maybe pitchers in Japan need to kind of adapt before they get into the major leagues. Because I feel like position players, it's one thing when they adjust to the major leagues, but I feel like adjusting to pitching the major leagues is a whole different animal. Because
big thing.
Because I've watched a lot. Did you see that? Did you ever see this video I sent you? Because I don't remember it by name. Remember I sent you like this almost an hour and a half video about how baseball culture is in Japan that I thought was really fascinating. I wish I could remember the name of the video to send people the link to this, because this is a real fascinating video if you're into baseball, by the way. It's a real fascinating video that.
Yeah, see if you can find the link, and we will post it in this video. But absolutely, you know, just gotta hope that Kodai can get back on track. And you know, the Mets actually are going to be facing another team that's had a lot of great Japanese players over the years this weekend, and that is one of the hottest teams in baseball right now, the Seattle Mariners, who are coming in. You know, an old friend who we have been talking about in trade scenarios for a couple of years, Luis Castillo, will actually be pitching for the Mariners on Friday night against presumptive Mets ace Sean Manaea, who's trying to return to form. So it's going to be a big game on Friday night against a really good.
Yep, exactly. And also, if you're attending the game, you might want to be in your seat early, because I've heard from people that the Beatles cover band that's performing in honor of the anniversary of their concert at Shea Stadium, so it was a pretty good Beatles cover band.
Yeah, and they're giving away the replica Shea Stadium, so all the more reason to get in there and check things out. And so that's going to do it for the Mets today, Dan. Obviously, big game against the Braves tonight. Keep our fingers crossed and hope they get the job done. But on the other side of town, the Yankees have off, and they're hitting the road to take on St. Louis this weekend. We'll get into that in a second with them. But they did actually have a very odd thing happen to them yesterday, and that's that the Yankees actually lost to the Minnesota Twins. Who would have thought that? I didn't even think that was illegal. I thought there was some kind of law against that, preventing.
Oh my God! I feel like that kind of loss. If George Steinbrenner was around, I think he would just be angry at George Costanza for no reason over that loss.
I could see that, but you'd have to get over it because the Yankees did win the series. They beat up the Twins the first 2 games in that series, and they actually lost to a really good pitcher in Joe Ryan in the finale of this 3-game set. The Yankees take 2 out of 3, kind of get back on the good side, the winning side of the equation. But Dan, look at this number, and this backs up what we were just saying. The Twins just snapped with that loss yesterday, with that win, I'm sorry. The loss for the Yankees, win for the Twins. They snapped a 9-game overall losing streak to the Yankees, and even worse than that, since 2002, the Yankees are 125-45 against the Twins, 80 games over 500. Just pure domination.
Yeah, that is like almost, I feel like that is MLB's equivalent of the Indianapolis Colts consistently losing to the New England Patriots in the playoffs, and also the equivalent, if you're going to compare that to other teams losing to specific teams in playoffs quite a bit, it's almost also the equivalent of the Knicks losing to the Bulls in the 90s.
Yeah, I could see that. But this isn't even just the playoffs. This is overall since 2002. And the crazy thing about it is, too, I thought you were going to mention that it resembled the Mets getting dominated in Turner Field by the Braves over those years, which that was a nightmare field until they got to the new part. But
I guess you could compare it that, but I was specifically comparing it to teams that have had a knack for losing to the same team in the playoffs.
But this isn't even about the playoffs. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. But,
exactly, because historically it only happened once that the Mets lost to the Braves in the playoffs.
Yeah, 99. That's true. But the Mets have been dominated at Turner Field, which is coincidentally where that series ended in Game 6 that year.
I feel like that because I was very little in 1988 when they lost the NLCS. I feel like that was the first time I really cursed up a storm in October. Was that 99 NLCS?
I was 13 years old, and that was them losing that game to the Braves was one of the worst moments of my young life at that time. But Dan, let's not dwell on the 99 NLCS. Let's keep it going here with the Yankees. As I did want to also bring up too, Dan, that 2 acquisitions I actually liked for the Yankees at the deadline this year were Ahmed Rosario and Austin Slater. Obviously we know Rosario and Austin Slater's a good young outfielder. I thought they added some athleticism and, a little bit of youthfulness, although they're not that young, to the Yankees. But they're both on the IL already, not contributing. But 2 guys that are going to come back from the IL are Fernando Cruz, who the Yankees bullpen really fell apart prior to the trade deadline, before when they lost this guy, Fernando Cruz, and Ryan Yarbrough, who is a good lefty the Yankees have used at times this year too. So I feel like if these guys come back to the Yankees bullpen, Dan, the Yankees are going to have one of the better pens in the league.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that there was this kind of good and bad in that situation, because on the other hand, the big pieces you thought at the trade deadline that was going to elevate the team to that next level got injured. On the other hand, you got 2 key pieces that were injured that are close to coming back. And on the third hand of how difficult it is, it gets even more difficult when you're trying to climb the uphill battle.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. No doubt about it. And, I do want to continue talking about the Yankees right now, but I just saw something out of the corner of my eye, and I'm going to try to see if we can pull this up right here, because at this current moment, they are doing the looks like maybe I can. They're doing the ceremony for Pete Alonso that is being emceed by Howie Rose. And I was trying to bring it up, but it doesn't look like they're going to allow me to do that.
Yep, exactly. Probably not going to be able to bring it up. I actually have it recorded on my DVR to watch, so I am gonna get to see this after we're finished here. I'm definitely gonna take a look at it. But yeah, that is happening, and it actually was supposed to happen yesterday when I was actually there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then because of the bad weather.
Yep, it happened. But either way, I'll get to see it, and I guess we'll comment in on it on our Patreon show on Sunday.
Yeah, we'll definitely have something about that, no doubt about it. It's unfortunate that they're not letting me pull it up here, but yeah. So either way, let's keep it rolling along here. Unfortunate, tough break for the Yankees with those injuries, but their bullpen should be getting some relief in the next couple of days. The other thing too is that Paul Goldschmidt is also dealing with a knee issue, so he's questionable as the Yankees open up a weekend series in St. Louis tomorrow. The big rematch of the 1964 World Series, the Yankees and the Cardinals, and Paul Goldschmidt, the former Cardinal, having a bum knee. That's the Yankees got to be careful with that.
Yep, exactly. That could turn out in any way possible. That could turn out in multiple possibilities, and that could be a little scary because sometimes when I feel like when you have like a knee is barking, sometimes that thing can go from bad to worse.
Yeah,
depending on what happens.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. You're absolutely right.
So I feel like Yankee fans are probably nervous about that, especially more notably our buddy Eastside Dave.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you know what, Daniel? Let's see. I think I found. Let's see if it works here.
Or let's see.
Can you hear it or no?
I'll see if I can hear it. Maybe I can hear part of it. Either way, me personally, I'll be watching this a little later because I have it recorded. But I can't hear it, but I can see it. So it's pretty good. I can tell you what I'm seeing though. The production looks good on the tribute video, I have to say.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. The Mets have been doing phenomenal with that production work recently, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah. I have to say they've done a good job. They've done a great job. They do a great job with the production. I feel like and whoever does these productions, I feel like has to be one of the many people in sports highlight films and presentations like this may have had an influence by the guy that founded NFL Films, which founded the standard for sports highlight films. Taking a little taking the knack what he learned from making movies in Hollywood, the movie and TV productions. He took that knowledge into producing sports highlight films in the way they film them and they put together the footage. He took that knowledge and applied it to those highlight films and set the standard. So many people who do this today do a great job. Got to give credit to that guy. I forget his name. The guy that founded NFL Film. But you got to give a credit to that guy's name.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And it's cool here, too, to see Daryl here giving his congratulations to Pete.
That is definitely cool. And by the way, I can tell you from having met Darryl Strawberry, he is one of the nicest people you could meet. If you've ever
I've
had
actually met Daryl at spring training. Yeah, I've had the pleasure of meeting Daryl at spring training, and he couldn't have been nicer. I don't know why. Just off the top of my head, it's funny. We see Pete coming out here in the black uniforms and everything. Did you hear that David Wright was on a Mets podcast the other day and said that he hates the traditional Mets pinstripe uniforms and that his favorite uniforms were the black uniforms with the white pants? I think that's sacrilege. What do you think about that, Dan?
as much as I love David Wright, I kind of have to disagree on that. I feel like that uniform is such a good uniform that the design has gone relatively unchanged over the years. There have been different variations of the standard pinstripe uniform. You know, more notably the racing stripes of the '80s that you may have seen me wearing in some of my photos. But for the most part, there's always been some version of the pinstripe uniform. I feel like it's such a good design that it's gone almost unchanged over the years.
Yeah,
and I say the same thing. Yep. I say the same thing about the Mets logo. It's been roughly the same logo over the years. There have been different alternate versions of the Mets logo, and you look at old versions of the Mets logo we know today, older versions, and you see the little NY symbol on the logo. But for the most part, the Mets logo has gone unchanged since '64.
Yeah, it's true. And yeah, man, and that's another reason too. I was thrilled on Tuesday night when Pete broke the record that they were wearing the traditional pinstripe, Mets uniform. And I was disappointed in David Wright, but he's entitled to his opinion. But the pinstripe is among my favorites.
Yep, exactly. And as far as I see, if you have your number hanging on the rafters, you're entitled to have your opinions about your playing days.
Exactly. So, all right, as we see Pete giving the salute to the Met fans, he's going back in the dugout, how he's wrapping things up. We wanted to at least check in on that because it's very cool to see. So let's, before we get out of here, we got some more things to get into. Let's wrap up with the Yankees, then we'll talk some Jets and Giants before we close things down here. Last thing for the Yankees is, as we were saying, tomorrow night they're going to start the weekend series in St. Louis. Luis Gil, or Heel, however you pronounce his name, is going to be starting tomorrow night against Andre Palante. The Mets have seen Palante a couple of times this year and handled him pretty well both times. So it'll be interesting to see how the Yankees bats go against him. But the Yankees still trying to get Gil back on track. He had a phenomenal rookie season last year, and obviously hampered by injuries this year. I was looking at his rehab starts, and I thought I heard that the Yankees had left him down there for a little while, but he only had 4 rehab starts under his belt down there in the minors, and didn't particularly go that well. So the Yankees kind of rushing him up here, and they're going to really need him to deliver.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like the Yankees have to take 2 out of 3 against the series, especially with St. Louis being historically bad. I feel like for some reason St. Louis, this feels weird. St. Louis falling out of contention before the second half of the season. I feel like St. Louis usually is in contention. Usually into this, if they've fallen out of contention, usually it's during the second half. I've never, the years they didn't make the playoffs. So this kind of feels like weird, historically low. And from what I've seen, when I've seen MLB highlights and stuff like shows like on MLB Network, like Quick Pitch and stuff, feels weird seeing low crowds in St. Louis. Because I feel like St. Louis is one of the teams that usually draws big crowds for some reason. St. Louis shows up even when the team's not bad. So that kind of feels weird seeing St. Louis have crowds that low. I even once considered last year taking a trip to see the Mets in St. Louis, but I didn't do it because I didn't feel like it was going to financially was going to work out the travel and stuff. But I noticed how cheap the tickets were. And I was says, tickets that low in lower bowl in St. Louis? Because I feel like St. Louis kind of is is more a pricier on resale kind of thing. So that kind of shocked me for saying that low in crowds that small in St. Louis. Even though sometimes it's hard to tell if the crowd's empty or not, because they make the seats the same color as maybe the shirts the fans would be wearing if they showed up. So sometimes you can't tell if there's fans or not. I feel like it's the same logic that I heard some NASCAR tracks do. I actually heard some NASCAR tracks. The reason sometimes you see the seats look like they're painted different colors is because when they film TV commercials or movie or TV productions, they try to use that to create the illusion of fans in the stands. Because if you look at the cars at like full speed and stuff, it kind of looks like that there's fans in the stands. So they kind of did that as a little cheat in a production for movie and
Makes
TV
sense.
productions, I heard.
Makes sense. They always have their... Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm sure you've noticed a lot of car commercials or filmed at racetracks, and you notice it kind of does look like there's people in the stands when you see movie and TV productions. That's a little cheat they do.
It's true. It's true. So last thing for the Yankees, like you said, take advantage of a bad Cardinals team. And Palante, that 5 ERA, the Yankees are hoping Judge and Giancarlo could take care of that. I did want to say I didn't see this earlier. We had a couple of chats come in. I wanted to say the Mets are in big trouble from Big Teats. All right. Thanks, buddy, for hanging out with us.
Right.
Yes, if they have the Braves. They do.
Yeah, fuck yeah! I feel like we're gonna beat the Braves. I feel like I would just be utter silent until the start of the game tomorrow if the Mets don't beat the Braves today.
Well, it's a big game tonight, no doubt about it. But Dan, as we round out here in the final segment of the show, last couple of minutes, I do want to talk some Jets-Giants. And we had a big Jets-Giants week, as a matter of fact. Just to recap real quick, last weekend they kicked off the preseason. The Jets won their opener in Green Bay pretty handily, 30-10. That was nice to see. And from a Giants perspective, they won their preseason opener in Buffalo, 34-25. So both teams coming out victorious, although, Dan, that's not going to be 100% possible this time around, as they're playing each other this weekend, Jets and the Giants, and that's in the aftermath of their joint practices this week. What'd you think?
Which, by the way, I was kind of low-key on about it because I was just trying to focus because of how hot it was during that morning to try to drink enough water. But a former coworker invited me to that practice. So I actually went to the Meadowlands, the Giants, the Giants' little practice facility. I got to see that joint practice.
What'd you think?
I thought the Giants looked good in that practice. I feel like they were kind of showing their I feel like their game readiness, practicing against another opponent other than their own teammates.
Well, the word is that the both defenses look pretty good. In fact, the Giants pass rush, they were saying, with Abdul Carter and Thibodeau and Burns, looked really good. The Jets defense looked pretty good too, but they said both offenses struggled and really didn't maintain much momentum. What do you think about that?
I think that's also a proper assessment. I feel like both offenses have key elements that are kind of trying to break into NFL form. I feel like you got a lot of rookie pieces, key rookie pieces, including both teams have rookie quarterbacks that are breaking into NFL form.
Justin Fields isn't a rookie though for the Jets.
Oh yes, I forgot if he was a rookie or not. But yeah, I feel like both quarterbacks are kind of getting adjusted to their offensives, and especially the Giants with a rookie quarterback, trying to get into NFL form. Because I feel like there's an adjustment period from going to college to the NFL. Even though I feel like colleges do a good job, a lot of the big name colleges do a good job of preparing their players for the NFL. I just feel like it's a different energy and a different speed, and there's a lot more at stake when you're playing in the NFL that you're adjusting to, especially wearing a New York uniform with all the eyes that are on you. It's
Oh yeah, no
it's a
doubt
new
about it. And
it's an
quarterbacks are
adjustment.
expected to succeed immediately these days. It doesn't necessarily always happen. Look at Sam Darnold with the Jets. He came up here. He had the famous, I'm seeing ghosts game. He struggled. They replaced him with Zach Wilson, who also sucked, although in my opinion, much worse than Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold goes to Minnesota and has a great year.
Yeah, and another one that's notable. I feel like it took three years for Eli Manning to really progress to the level that the fact that we're seeing him be a possible Hall of Famer, and I feel like eventual Hall of Famer. I feel like that's inevitable. I don't care what you could argue all you want. Eli Manning's an eventual Hall of Famer, so I feel like it kind of takes a little bit to adjust to that at an NFL level.
I agree with you on that. And it was even harder 20 years ago when Eli was doing it because guys were actually allowed to play defense back then. And you're right. The one criticism that I constantly heard from my Giant fan friends about Eli is that he turned the ball over too much. It was too many interceptions, too many bad decisions, and then that all changed with the really not even the full 2007 season. Really, in the 2007 postseason is when Eli just turned into a different guy, and it's crazy the way that ended up working out. And the Giants got to hope the same thing for Jackson Dart, who the level of competition is going to step up greatly for him this year. And he might not be ready for it at first, but it's all going to be dependent on when the Giants decide to pull the trigger and actually put him in as the starting quarterback over a guy like Russell Wilson, or when what he looks like at the end of this year, because he's going to play eventually. We don't know when but he's going to play, and it's going to determine when you're looking at what he's putting on film for the Giants in August right now. There needs to be a significant progression between now and what we see at the end of the year in December and January.
Yeah, I feel like the two things that are going to determine that what kind of quarterback Jackson Dart is going to be is what he does this year, and more importantly, what he does next year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the thing that he's got in his back pocket that a lot of quarterbacks don't have is he's got a top-tier receiver in Malik Neighbors. So Giants off to a good start with that, with their young quarterback. Jets, as you mentioned, Justin Fields coming in here, former Bear, former Pittsburgh Steeler coming in here now, and I forget maybe this would be his fifth year or so, I want to say. And he looked good in that first preseason game. He had a 13-yard touchdown run, led the Jets on a touchdown there, but the offense has looked inconsistent at times during practice. We'll see how that works out. For the Jets, though, the big thing is that Sauce Gardner missed the joint practice, the last joint practice with the Jets and the Giants. He has a calf that they're a little concerned about, so he was held out. But, this time of year, a lot of that has to do with, not being hydrated properly. So maybe they just got to get him full of some water.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I feel like that's going to play a factor. I feel like the preseason sometimes gets a little intense, that you get players that cramp out a little bit.
Yeah.
So
especially
especially because of how hot it is. So you kind of have to take that into consideration about
it.
About players maybe being a little bit maybe a little bit banged up in preseason, because I feel like of all the sports preseasons, I feel like the NFL is the most intense when it comes to season preparation.
No doubt about it.
The NFL, and especially in this hot, when you got that intense practice in this kind of hot weather, even with the fact that NFL teams do their practice in the morning to try to maybe set it up that they're practicing at the least hot part of the day. Even with that, it can still get pretty hot. So they can only do so much to work around that, and that kind of thing does happen. I could tell you it happens to me a little bit, cramped up maybe a little bit. Sometimes I have to drink extra water I work a rough job at a UPS loading truck, so it's like I gotta do a lot of stuff to prepare to avoid cramping out this time of year. And then it would be even worse if I was doing the same job someplace really hot like South Florida. So this kind of thing even happens to people that do the kind of job I do in this kind of hot weather, especially in how hot it gets in that warehouse. Just to put it into contrast.
Yeah, and especially, when you're a guy like Gardner or anybody on the Jets who's come through the Jets the last couple of years, where Robert Saleh has not run hard camps at all. And as opposed to the camp, it's a little bit more Parcells-like that Aaron Glenn is running this year. So maybe that's got something to do with it too. He's just got to work out, in this tough training camp, which I'm a fan of. So just to wrap up there, Dan, Jets-Giants this Saturday night, 7 p.m., going to be a big game. I believe it's on Channel 2, and the Giants are the home team. So it's going to be the annual Snoopy Bowl.
Yep, exactly. I think it's actually gonna be on two networks. Like on the Channel 2, it's gonna have the Jets radio announcers, and on Channel 4, you're gonna have the Giants radio play-by-play people. So you're so just to keep that in mind. And I'm probably gonna watch this game on a delay because I'm gonna start because I have it on record on my DVR. So it'll probably be a little bit have already started by the time I get home. But as soon as I get home, I'm gonna start from the beginning to take a look at this game to really talk about on the show. So
yeah, no doubt about it, man.
Because the Met game we're attending is 4:00, so I'm setting this on my DVR so I could take a look at it when I get home.
No doubt about it, and and we will be talking about that game on Sunday's show on Patreon. If you want to check that out, patreon.com/Best Seat in the House podcast. And Dan, I think that's about going to do it for us here today on the show. So before we get out of here, anything you'd like to plug for yourself?
Sure, I got to plug my Twitter account, Bobo103NYC, and Instagram, Bobo718DK. YouTube, one word, Daniel Curlin, and also be on the lookout. I'm good. I am a little bit behind Trackside Minute because of like a lot of things I had to do on and off during the week. Sometimes I get a little bit winded, but I'll be filming a Trackside Minute, catching up on the stuff that happened the last 3 NASCAR Cup Series races, and then there'll be another one on Sunday, wrapping up what happened with the Sunday. Actually, that one will be filmed on Monday because the NASCAR race is going to happen at night. But I'll make sure you guys are up to date with the Trackside Minute with all the action that's happened in the NASCAR Cup Series to be able to look at that. Also, remember, subscribe to our Patreon. Whenever I upload videos on YouTube, and there might be a little video of us. You guys will, whatever videos you see uploaded on my YouTube, you guys get early access to 1 week early access. And more importantly, don't forget that when you subscribe to our Patreon, you help support the show.
Exactly. So make sure that you subscribe to us. Like Bobo said, we're going to be having probably some content from going to the game this weekend. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us here on this Thursday evening. We'll be back with you on Patreon on Sunday. But like always, we'll be back at our regular time next week, 7 p.m. on Thursday right here on YouTube. So for my co-host, the great Daniel Bobo Curlin, I'm Rob Kramer. This is the Best Seat in the House podcast, everybody. I'll catch you next time. Have a great night. Let's go Mets.